React components. Components are like functions that return HTML elements. React components. Components are independent and reusable bits of code. They serve the same purpose as JavaScript functions, but work in isolation and return HTML. Components come in two types, class components and function components. In this tutorial we will concentrate on function components. In older React code bases, you may find class components primarily used. It is now suggested to use function components along with hooks, which were added in React 16.8. There is an optional section on class components for your reference. Create your first component. When creating a React component, the component's name must start with an uppercase letter. Class component. A class component must include the extends React component statement. This statement creates an inheritance to React component and gives your component access to React.components functions. The component also requires a render method. This method returns HTML. Example. Create a class component called car. Code. Function component. Here is the same example as above, but created using a function component instead. A function component also returns HTML and behaves much the same way as a class component, but function components can be written using much less code, are easier to understand, and will be preferred in this tutorial. Example. Create a function component called car. Code. Rendering a component. Now your React application has a component called car, which returns an H2 element. To use this component in your application, use similar syntax as normal HTML. car/. Example. Display the car component in the root element. Code. Props. Components can be passed as props, which stands for properties. Props are like function arguments, and you send them into the component as attributes. You will learn more about props in the next chapter. Example. Use an attribute to pass a color to the car component, and use it in the render function. Code. Components in components. We can refer to components inside other components. Example. Use the car component inside the garage component. Code. Components in files. React is all about reusing code, and it is recommended to split your components into separate files. To do that, create a new file with a .js file extension and put the code inside it. Note that the file name must start with an uppercase character. Example. This is the new file, we named it car.js. Code. To be able to use the car component, you have to import the file in your application. Example. Now we import the car.js file in the application, and we can use the car component as if it was created here. Code.